Hey, g'day. Welcome. Here we are, 17th of April 2024. Chat with Matt, half an hour or so to talk about what's going on for you and what's going on for us as a collective, and with the intent to potentially say something that's going to help you. I will give my normal caveat. I haven't done this on Chat with Matt for a while. I do it generally on most of my topic calls and stuff to my paid subscription group, just reminding you that I'm not here, we are not here, Matt as a channel, we are not here to tell you the truth, right? We're not here to impart information that's important. We're here to vocalize ideas that may be useful for you to hear, right? Potentially trigger you, potentially instigate or invite an inquiry where you get to consider what you believe and why you believe it, and potentially evaluate and reevaluate where your values are, what's important to you, what's driving you, to help you live more consciously, really, to help you have more awareness and not just be on autopilot, allowing your beliefs to be unchallenged. I think it's really beneficial for us all, myself included, to challenge our beliefs regularly. Doesn't mean that we have to throw our beliefs out, but we at least need to recognize that they are just beliefs, first and foremost, and that we all have our own individual collection of beliefs, and that they are dynamic and fluid. Beliefs do keep changing, and it's rather insidious, really, how our beliefs can change without us even recognizing that our beliefs have changed. And we think we're being very stable, and we think we're being very consistent. You know, consistency is a word that a lot of people put a lot of power on. I do as well, actually. We quite often say, you know, consistent practice is what's going to get you there, consistently reminding yourself to breathe and stuff. But consistence in the sort of the shadow side of consistency is this idea that you don't change, that you hold your line, that you honor your word, that your beliefs are somehow unchanging, therefore you have a stability to you that the world, or at least society, really values, right? It's very virtuous to be unchanging. You know, we poo-poo people who change their mind, or at least if they change their mind too quickly or too often, we say they're flaky, they're not reliable, they're whatever. And a lot of us are carrying complexes around that idea that if we change our position on something, we're somehow dishonoring our past, or not being stable in a world that virtualizes is the word I want to use. I don't know if that's a real word, but appreciates or elevates the goodness of being stable and not changing. But the truth is, we're always changing, and our beliefs are always morphing and evolving. Evolution is completely unavoidable, right? It is very, very natural. Change is the nature of the universe, and if you think otherwise, you're just deluding yourself, right? So yeah. I just wanted to say that to start with. I think for whatever reason that came out, and I can't even remember what started it now, but this idea that what we're saying, we're not here to tell you what you should believe. We're not here to tell you the truth. We're not here to relay information. We're here to stimulate a conversation or an inquiry within you, more than the conversation that I'm having, the conversation that you have in your own experience of yourself, right? The inquiry around who you are. That is what our intent is to encourage. Anyway, I popped a little poster on that says, if you desire to ascend, and ascension's an interesting word, you have to be willing to climb. And the picture is me there on Great Barrier Island in front of what seems like a never-ending set of stairs running up the side of a hill, up through a bit of a canyony gorge thing. There's many things I could argue about that statement that I just put on a whim. Happy Wednesday, Sister Deb. Hey, Jen Burns, and I think there was someone else here, Narendra. Yeah, I just wrote that as a very last minute thing, actually. I wasn't going to put a comment on that photo at all, but I felt willing to stir the pot. But I do want to clarify that I'm not saying, that we are not saying, that ascension is a process of simply climbing. Even though ascend sounds like just to go up, which is the play on words, right? In my mind, in my experience, it is a process of expansion, not a process of climbing. But the message there is, the important word there is be willing to climb, as opposed to you have to climb, or that it is a process of climbing, or that you should even climb. But you have to be willing to do the work when you desire to expand yourself. And sometimes, just like that photo sort of portrays, the work doesn't look like it has any ending, right? You have to simply go at it one step at a time up what looks like a never-ending staircase. I can assure you I went up those stairs and it didn't take that long. And I topped out at a beautiful view, and then we went down some more, and then we went up another set of stairs. And then I went up after that second set of stairs. We topped out again, went over a rounded hill, down through a bit of a saddle, and up a scree slope, or not a really scree, but a scramble that involved hands and feet, and there were no stairs. And it made the stairs seem like bliss. That's an actual true story of that little walk across the tops in the Great Barrier Island, a walk which I hope to take some people on when we go there in November. But the analogy is just sort of popping into my head. The point is not to think that ascension is simply a matter of climbing stairs or climbing levels and layers. It is a process that is multidimensional, confusing, in no way linear like a set of stairs, in no way linear like a set of stairs. But the point is, from time to time, it feels like you have that task ahead of you that you're going to have to just keep plodding up stairs, which takes effort. And if you're not willing to do that work, you're not really fully desiring or appreciating the process of expansion that some people call ascension. So, yeah, hopefully that clarifies that concept. Now, Sister Jen Burns wrote in some great comments here, which is quite long, but I think I'm going to read it all because there's a lot of goodness in it. So let me have a go at this. Well, you can't really stop me, but bear with me while I attempt to read this. I'm not a great reader. Okay, so I've been thinking, this is Jen writing, by the way, I've been thinking about connection as an essential human need. Connection with our bodies, with other people, with oneness, the collective, in a way that is nourishing. I notice there is also resistance here, clearly from wounding trauma around what that connection means, associating connecting with other people and avoiding feeling pain. Yesterday, I noticed a resistance to someone inviting me to connect with them energetically, with some fear that it would harm me or I would, quote unquote, take on their negative energy or patterns from them in some way. Spoiler alert, I recognize this was all bullshit. The more I play with the collective energy, quote unquote, we space, the more I realize that it can hold all. And if I'm connected there, then whatever arises can be held by something larger than me. And I don't need to resist it or be afraid of taking on energy by myself. So in short, I'm interested in talking about energetically connecting with the we/collective / unity of all of us in a way that is supportive, and the fears that arise when we connect one-on-one with each other. So yeah, that is an awesome expression. Thank you very much, Sister Jen, for putting it there as an inspiration for us to talk about. Hey, Sister Emily Rose. Jen also wrote in a little bit later, also exploring the concept of naturalness more deeply. And I like that a lot. Allowing things to be more natural as opposed to orchestrating, conceive, micromanaging things in a quote-unquote man-made way, in a more linear way, in a more reductionist way. When I think of nature, I think of messy. And yet there's order, and there's a divine order, and there's a beauty and a brilliance, and everything has its place, even though it is, to the human mind's concept, messy, right? When you walk through a forest or a jungle, it is complicated in its messiness. There's things dying everywhere. There's fallen trees and branches and stuff. There's stuff growing out of stuff. There's stuff that's twisted. There's stuff that's, struggling, and yet there's magnificence and beauty and divine presence in it all. That is nature, and that is the naturalness that I choose to aspire to or align with when dealing with the process, right? The process of life, the process of ascension, the process of natural or spiritual evolution. When I can allow it to be more natural, it basically means I'm allowing it to be chaotic and unruly and confusing. I'm allowing dead stuff to be in the space. I'm not brushing it away. I'm not hiding it. I'm not needing to tidy it up. I'm allowing all of that dead stuff to decompose rather slowly in the space because it's providing the nutrients for what's growing. That's natural, right? And it's difficult for our minds to appreciate it because we've been trained to love things to be simple in how they present. Nature really is simple in many ways. It follows some very simple rules, and yet it appears very complex and chaotic. As opposed to a lot of human simpleness, which is basically just hiding or masking a lot of complication and contradiction. So I think there's a lot of value in relaxing into allowing spaces like the we space that Jen has asked about here, the collective space, the energetic unity of all of us, to be very natural, which is chaotic and beyond the comprehension of the human mind, and certainly not very appeasing to that little egoic aspect of us that likes things to be easily understandable. That's why we reduce things down to simple concepts. That's why we reduce things down to labels. That's why we put things in buckets all of the time, right? We judge it as this or that, right? It's usually this or that. This is either good or bad. This is either hot or cold, right? We put a label on it, and then we've labeled it, and that simplifies it for us to make sense of the world. But that making sense is really rather delusional in that we're not really making true sense of it. We're creating a deluded sense that appeases the egoic mind, but doesn't really adequately capture the brilliance of what's in front of us or what's around us or what we're experiencing. So I want to go back to where Jen was talking about how this choosing to meet people in a space is inherently safer than this concept that we have of singularities connecting. So I think to really understand connection, we have to understand that the concept of separation is a delusion, right? The idea that I am separate from the world around me is the fundamental delusion that is useful in many ways for us having experiences, but in other ways creates a lot of pain for us and a lot of confusion, a lot of fear. This idea that I am a small, separate entity that needs to fight the external world to create space for myself to exist. This is very human and very detrimental to our happiness. Right? It brings on this, it basically is founded in lack, that there's a lack of space for me to exist, and there's a lack of resources for me to use in my existence, and then it incites competitiveness. Right now I need to compete with other perceived individuals to get the resources and the space that I require to flourish and survive and prosper in the world, right? It's not true. Right? It's not true fundamentally, and yet we've created a world where this truth plays out, right? Where this concept, this belief is honored and even idolized, that this competitive nature of humans pitting themselves against each other is what life's about. And it doesn't have to be that way. We've just created a world where this is the prime game of trying to outcompete other people for perceived resources, whether that's food or money or whether it's love and attention. It doesn't really matter. We think we need to compete for this attention, and we need to defend our space to exist in, which in my opinion is deluded, in that we're not really separate from the space anyway. The analogy that just popped into my mind is like a wave flowing across the ocean. The wave has the appearance of being an entity unto itself, right? You can see that wave, you can recognize that wave, you can follow that wave as it travels all the way to the shore, where it peaks up in a beautiful climax of expression and crashes onto the shore and dissipates its energy and is gone, right? Our human life is much the same in many ways, but the point is that the wave, it's easy to get deluded that the wave is an entity, and it's not true, right? That wave is not even carrying matter, right? The water, the droplets that are participating in the wave don't actually go all the way to the shore. The interesting thing is the water droplets that are crashing to the shore are the same water droplets that keep crashing to the shore. The water droplet doesn't travel in the wave. It merely just goes up and down in its space, basically, right? I know there's currents. There's a lot more to the analogy, but the point is, it's just a traveling energy. It's a traveling energy. The water, it was always the ocean. And it's the same with you. There's a perception that you are somehow some sort of separate entity, then you are traveling around this body as a vehicle, and the mental and emotional components of you are all separate and traveling around, but it's not really that way. You are just a wave of energy flowing through a continuum, much the same as a wave on the ocean traveling through the continuum of the ocean. Appears to have an identity, but in reality that identity is rather transient. So the human condition, right, where we're deluded into really getting quite attached to the form of the human and to the thoughts you're having, right? The idea that these are my thoughts as opposed to these are thoughts that you are experiencing. These are my emotions as opposed to this is energy, a feeling of energy that I'm experiencing, right? We own these things, my body, my thoughts, my feelings, right? As if it's separate and there's name tags on it. There aren't, right? This matter that even makes up my body is just energy, right? When we look into the atoms that make up the cells that make up the skin, that make up the bones, right? It's just vibration. And the idea of ownership over this vibration is simply crazy. But yet we all partake in this craziness because it gives us the opportunity to have experiences that our soul or our being that's having the experience through the human vessel is gaining wisdom through this. We are just like the avatar on the computer game, and you watch kids or even adults as they're playing these games these days, and they can even have virtual goggles on, they have headsets on, they're talking to their friends who are playing also. They're in this virtual world. It seems very real, and they can get lost in it very easily as they project themselves into the experience. But we know the game will end. We know that they will turn off the machine at some stage and they'll come back to the reality of who they are. They were just in an alternate reality for some time. This world is one such alternate reality that your soul is experiencing. It's like your soul family is around playing a video game and they've projected into human form to have this experience, right? It is spookily similar in my opinion. But so the idea that when we connect with another, just getting back to Jen's expression and question or request really for discussion, this idea that there's fear around connecting with another individuation because they could take something from us or leave something with us that we don't want, right? We've got this concept that there's good stuff and bad stuff outside there in terms of energetic residues and whatnot. And you know, there's some truth to these concepts. Of course, there are energetic residues. that do create pain and challenge for us to move through. And you know, we look at all sorts of other human concepts like, you know, germs and catching colds or catching viruses from one another. There's all sorts of stuff that goes on with this competitive sort of separateness that we've created. So the point is that Jen pointed out that if we can have a concept of a we space, right, the collective space, and that we're actually, when we're connecting with another person, we're actually meeting them there, that it can be a much more easy connection as opposed to connecting one-on-one where it feels more vulnerable with another. What just popped into my head then when I was saying that is this, oh, it's almost gone. I'm going to have a drink and see if it comes back. I might have lost that. Yes, right. This idea that we connect and disconnect, right? As I was sort of talking about nature at the start and the interconnectedness of it all, the point is that the idea of separation, right, is a delusion, right? And that we're not really separate at all from anything anyway. And this idea of connecting with someone is really just the choice to bring our attention to recognize really the connection that's there. The connection's always been there. I think another good example of the idea that the connection was always there is when we meet someone who we feel we already know, right? When you meet a quote-unquote soulmate, someone who you are already energetically connected to, but you haven't met yet, or haven't at least connected with, haven't recognized the connection yet in the human form. So quite often we have deep level connection with beings, even if it wasn't a connection that was developed or experienced yet on the human plane, right? We can have connections with soul beings or energetic beings who we've interacted with on other planes of existence as the being, right? Not as the human. So, and then we meet them here and we feel a strange sense of connection, right? We feel an attraction or even a repulsion to these people, right? Awesome. M. Rose, I'm glad you are enjoying this conversation. Please feel free to throw in your 2 cents or 10 cents worth at any time. So there's already a connection. We already have infinite number of connections with all sorts of things, entities, vibrations, whether it be a concept or a soul having a human experience, or an animal, or even an object, right, that has some form, that we are already connected. Of course, this little pea brain in the human intellect cannot manage to conceive of this level of interconnectedness, and so we reduce it down and we connect to things much more selectively with our attention. We take our attention to what we are choosing to recognize the connection with, and we explore it, right? We break it down to have an exploration of the connection, and we label it as, oh, we're choosing to connect with this, like it's a new form connection. The connection potentially was already there. What you are doing is bringing your attention to the connection and therefore enhancing the connection in your perception, right? Because now that your attention is on it, it's becoming more obvious that there's connection there, and you can explore that connection, which you might call creating the connection or developing the connection, but all you're really doing is exploring a connection. Ultimately, all of this is just semantics, and it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter because the experience is valid. The experience of feeling like you're connecting with something is a valid experience to have, and it's not wrong. And even though it's somewhat deluded, you're not wrong for exploring that delusion in the way that you're doing it. It's not that you need to correct this, I think is what I'm saying. But in in coming back to what we said right at the start of the call, I'm not here to tell you how it is, right? We're not here to deliver wisdom or information so that you can correct yourself or become good or proper and you need to take this on and believe it. Not at all. We're here to stimulate your own inquiry into how you are interrelating or relating to the world around you so that you get to know yourself a little more, right? And that cannot come from someone else telling you anything, although our words might trigger your own inquiry, right? Your own exploration of the topic. That's what we're here to do. So please don't think that you need to either agree with me or disagree or fight or whatever. I'm quite happy for people to come on and disagree, by the way. That's a great way to further this discussion in a way that will help others as well, including myself. So the point being, I just want to read this again. The more I play with the collective energy we space, the more I realize that it can hold it all. And if I'm connected there, then whatever arises can be held by something larger than me. I think that concept of something larger than me is a very, very useful concept to have. It is really the backbone behind faith, really, and religion. And while we can see that there's a lot of controlling mechanisms that play out through various religions, the truth is that having a faith in something larger than us, which you could call God or you could call it the we space, the collective, is an incredibly useful tool to help us expand out of the stress that feeling separate, right, the getting lost in the delusion of separateness creates. And in allowing ourselves to soften or relax into the belief in, because it's very hard for us to, or we could call it the faith in a bigger space or a bigger entity or a bigger opportunity for us to exist, is incredibly useful in moving through this experience. So, and getting over the fear that if I connect with something, I'm either going to lose something of my own or take on something I don't want, or get entangled in the connection in a way that is going to be detrimental to me in some way. And so I'm cautious. I'm cautious about connecting. I want to stay protected, right? I want to keep my walls up. I want to make sure they're trustworthy before I open my heart. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to, be abused. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to love someone and then not have them return that love, because that would feel like I made a mistake, I was betrayed, or I was even abused, right? And that's ridiculous, right? What's wrong with loving someone and they don't return it? Ultimately, you experience love even if you didn't get what you wanted, which is to have yourself verified and validated that you're lovable, right? We're all doing this, by the way. I'm not doing the Jen as a separateness here, but we all do this, right? We're all insecure as the little separate human, because of course we are, because it's not the truth. We're not little and we're not separate. So of course we're feeling insecure in this delusion that we're this thing, right? And of course we're not feeling capable of doing the world as a little individuated separateness, because we're not doing the world as a little individuated separateness. So of course our little pea brain knows that we're not capable of micromanaging the world, and yet we've been trained to believe that we should. So the insecurity, of course, is very normal and natural, because we're somehow taking on a role that is simply not possible to achieve, right? We're taking on a goal that's not possible for us to succeed at, right? To live as a small individuation and to compete for resources and to win love and to get appreciation, right? We know inherently that it's not possible to do that. And so the little aspect of ourselves that's in this pretend game, of course, is feeling very insecure in the game, right? And yet we don't recognize it for what it is. We then double down on trying hard to win the game, to alleviate this insecurity, which isn't possible, because the insecurity is inherent to the idea that we've deluded ourselves into thinking that we're small and separate to begin with. That's quite deep. I don't think I've ever thought of it that way before, to be honest. Me personally, Matt. Maybe I should listen back to this. So, Ims wrote something in which I would like to read, I think, at this stage. The part about how we think we connect and disconnect with anything is so soothing to me, and that's so large. All I can really do is relax, and then I can choose more consciously. Exactly. And I think that's what we're coming to try and round this conversation out a little bit, as I just look at the time and realize I've already been on for half an hour, is this idea that we don't need to figure this out with our head. The point is, and we don't need to correct ourselves for being in the delusion. The point is that more that we relax, the more that we can naturally, right, this naturalness, the more that we can naturally see that we are already connected. And we can naturally experience it in a messy way, in a chaotic way. We can ride the waves of intensity, including the intensity that's created through our own delusion of wanting to connect with another and yet being scared to connect for all sorts of various reasons, traumas and places and spaces that we have inside of ourselves, educations and belief systems, that it's dangerous to connect. And yet the truth is we're already connected, and all we're really doing is bringing our awareness into that connection. As Jen pointed out, quite rightly, I believe, that if we can relax into recognizing that we're connecting in a space rather than this idea of two individuals just sort of in separateness and in isolation coming together, that this is all happening in a space that holds the connection, which is inherently there already, we can relax into experiencing the experience of connection, bringing our awareness into connection and exploring connections, including loving and hurting and exploring all sorts of concepts together in various ways, physically intimately or emotionally intimately or mentally intimately, or even quite exploring our connection without intimacy, right? We're removed or safe, what we might call safe connection, is also an experience as valuable, right? As we dance around maintaining personas and roles and delusional costumes that we play, right? If we can do it with a little bit more awareness, if we can relax into being conscious of what we are doing, I think everything will look after itself, right? And the process, right, of ascension or spiritual evolution or expansion will naturally happen. Going back to the poster I put on, if you want to ascend, you have to be willing to climb, but you don't need to just keep climbing. It's not about nose to the grindstone and doing the work, and it's all about the work, and you have to keep grinding up the freaking hill if you want to get to the top. You have to be willing to do the work when the work presents. But ultimately, I think what's more important for ascension is the willingness to relax into allowing it to be a natural process, and that you don't need to micromanage it, and no one has mapped out this process for you, because you are going to do your ascension in a completely unique way. And great saints have done it in their unique way, and they've even documented how they went through their process of ascension. We don't need to emulate that, because it won't be the same for us. We're all unique individuations of the same unity consciousness. We are unique individuations of the sameness, right? So I know that's hard to get your head around. How can we be unique if it's all the same? But there we are, we're doing it. We're living proof that it's possible to be unique and all interconnected and part of the same unity simultaneously. So your process is going to be an individual one. No one knows how it's going to go. So let go of the idea of I don't know how, because you're not supposed to know how. You're supposed to relax into following the cues one step at a time as they arise. You're going to do that more effectively the more that you can relax into the naturalness of the process. And there is an opportunity to inquire, and there's an opportunity to gain wisdom, and there's an opportunity to redefine your beliefs every step along the way. So be willing to do that as well. Relaxing doesn't mean being lazy. Still do the work, but do it in a relaxed, non-stressed way. Choose not to get contracted around needing to succeed at the process, right? When you're connecting with someone, stop trying to win. Or stop even trying not to lose, because it's the same thing, right? try to stop worrying about getting hurt or losing something or getting something you didn't want. The more that you can be open to the experience, and I'm not saying allow yourself to be abused, right? And there's always a lot of confusion around that. The more that you relax into trusting yourself in connection, the more that you will be intuitively guided or instinctively guided as to how to respond to any particular situation that arises within that connection and within the greater experience of life. I think that was only scratching the surface of that topic, potentially, this topic of connection. I didn't even talk about connecting with our own bodies. Well, we did sort of around the delusion of it, like we're a wave flowing across the ocean. But there's beauty and amazing opportunities in taking our attention and our awareness into the connection that our soul has with this human experience. It's a beautiful connection, in my opinion. It's awesome in the true sense of the word, right? And the amount of love is moving, physically moving. When I've done meditations before on recognizing the connection that my being has with this human vessel, it's very, very moving. And so that level of connection is definitely worth exploring for yourselves. Even though many of us struggle with our own bodies in all sorts of different ways, feeling that we're inadequate and all of the rest of it, the being that created our human experience and that has been witnessing our trials and tribulations has such a depth of love for this experience and for this whatever projection. It is humbling in many, many ways. Anyway, my friends, I've gone over time and I don't want to keep opening more cans of worms. So then I feel I need to elucidate or whatever, elucidate if that's the right word, talk more on. Anyway, my friends, much, much love. Thanks, M. Rose. Thanks, Jen Burns. Thanks everyone else for stimulating the conversation and riding with us and co-creating, at least with your energy, if you were here live, and all of those who watch in replay. Enjoy. Much, much love. And I am very open to more questions. Feel free to comment below on this live stream or in YouTube or however you're watching it, or reach out to us on email or whatever. Very happy to help you as best we can. Much love. Bye for now. I'll speak to you next week from Australia. This will be my last live stream chat with Matt from New Zealand. It won't be actually my last. It'll be my last chat with Matt on a Wednesday. Because I'm heading off this weekend for 5.5 months away from home, which will be quite a challenge for me. And you're all welcome to come on that journey over the next 5.5 months before we get back here, because I do endeavour to do chat with Matt as best that I can. I can't promise it'll be every Wednesday at 9 a.m. New Zealand time, though. Well, that really will not work from Asia, which we'll be in soon. However, much love. Bye for now, and I enjoy keep serving you as best we can.